Imagine an isolated castle with towering walls defying the desert itself. A groom and a bride celebrate their wedding when, suddenly, the shadow of one of the greatest conquerors in history falls upon the fortress. We are talking about the Siege of Kerak in 1183, where Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, the Leper King, faces none other than Saladin in one of the most dramatic moments of the Crusades. In this video, you will dive into a story of bravery, illness, diplomacy, and war, in which a young king, ravaged by leprosy, defies human logic and resists one of the greatest Muslim generals of the 12th century. We will understand how Baldwin, even physically weakened, managed to prevent the fortress of Kerak from falling into Saladin's hands, and how his presence changed the course of a battle that seemed lost. Stay until the end to discover what happened to the protagonists of this spectacular siege, and how this unexpected victory reinforced Baldwin's legend among his contemporaries and through the centuries. In the 12th century, the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem was a fragile Christian island amid vast Muslim territories. Founded after the First Crusade, the kingdom faced constant threats from Islamic armies unified under charismatic leaders such as Saladin. In 1183, Baldwin IV, already severely affected by leprosy, fought not only against external enemies, but also against internal divisions among ambitious nobles. Kerak, a fortified castle in the eastern part of the kingdom, was strategic for controlling trade and military routes between Jerusalem and Damascus. Its loss would represent a fatal blow to the stability of the Crusaders in the Holy Land. The Siege of Kerak began in late 1183, during the wedding of Humphrey IV of Turan and Isabella of Jerusalem, half-sister of King Baldwin. The ceremony, filled with guests from the Crusader nobility, was taking place within the walls of the imposing castle of Kerak, an almost impregnable fortress built on a rocky plateau. Taking advantage of the moment of distraction and vulnerability, Saladin quickly marched with his army to besiege the castle. Saladin, a brilliant strategist, knew that capturing Kerak would be both a symbolic and strategic blow against the Franks. He ordered his troops to set up sieges, using assault towers and catapults to relentlessly bombard the walls. According to chroniclers like Ernul and William of Tyre, Saladin, showing a degree of humanity, is said to have ordered that the sections of the castle where the wedding ceremony was taking place be spared from the bombardment. Inside the walls, panic was inevitable. The garrison of Kerak, though well prepared to resist, did not have unlimited supplies, and the threat of collapse was imminent. The Crusader forces tried to organize the defense, while attempting to send messengers through enemy lines to request help from Jerusalem. Baldwin, even gravely weakened by the progression of leprosy, which had already affected his hands, feet, and face, did not hesitate to act. Despite his advisors urging caution, the king assembled a relief force composed of Templar knights, hospitallers, and loyal barons. With no time to lose, he personally set out for Kerak, defying the desert and the dangers along the way. When Saladin learned that Baldwin was approaching, he faced a dilemma: risk open field combat against a reinforcement army or lift the siege. Knowing that the Crusaders, even weakened, would fight fiercely to protect the king, Saladin opted for a strategic withdrawal. Baldwin's army arrived at Kerak amid cheers from the besieged. His presence, even debilitated, was a symbol of hope and resistance. Saladin withdrew in an orderly fashion, leading his armies back to Muslim-controlled territories. Kerak, still standing, had endured thanks to the courage of its defenders and the determination of the Leper King. The success at the Siege of Kerak was not just a military victory, it was also a moral victory. Baldwin demonstrated that even with his deteriorating health, he was still capable of leading and inspiring his people. For Saladin, although the retreat did not mean a disastrous defeat, the failed siege halted his advance at that moment, preserving the survival of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem for a while longer. After the siege, Baldwin understood that the threat from Saladin would not cease. Kerak, although saved, remained vulnerable. In response, Baldwin organized emergency repairs on the castle walls and reinforced garrisons in other strategic points of the kingdom, such as Montreal and Jerusalem. The need to maintain internal political cohesion also became more urgent, as divisions among the Crusader nobles could at any moment jeopardize the security of isolated fortresses. Meanwhile, Saladin, shrewd and patient, devoted himself to consolidating his power in Egypt and Syria, preparing for future campaigns. He understood that the progressive weakening of Baldwin's health was an inevitable advantage he could exploit soon. Although he had withdrawn from Kerak, Saladin did not abandon his ambition to conquer Jerusalem, and every subsequent action would be planned with the gradual weakening of the Crusader kingdom in mind. From an internal perspective, the victory at Kerak had an ambiguous effect. Though it boosted the morale of the people and the nobility, it also exposed the political fragility of Baldwin's rule. Knowing that his time was limited, the king began to organize his succession, appointing regents and planning strategic marriage alliances, such as the very wedding celebrated during the siege. These measures, though necessary, also fueled rivalries that would erupt in the following years. At Kerak, the episode of the siege and resistance would become part of the Crusader imagination, celebrated in chants, prayers, and oral accounts. Baldwin, though young and physically devastated, embodied the ideal of a Christian king who, even touched by a disease considered a divine punishment by many at the time, was seen as a providential instrument in the defense of the faith. Among crusaders and pilgrims of the era, the story would circulate that Baldwin, in his gleaming armor, seemed more like a spirit sent by God than a mortal man. His act of riding personally to Kerak, instead of delegating the task to his generals, reinforced the perception that Providence still protected Jerusalem through him. Baldwin proved that true greatness lies not only in physical strength, but in the moral courage to face the impossible. His heroic action during that siege delayed for a few precious years the fall of the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem and inspired generations to believe in the power of virtuous leadership even in the face of extreme adversity. If you enjoyed learning about this incredible story, don't forget to like the video, leave your comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to follow more episodes about the fascinating life of Baldwin IV and the turbulent times of the Crusades. See you next time.